Namaskar, good evening. It is a Monday, which means it is time for an episode of Veteran Spotlight with me, your host Preeti Chaudhary, on LinkedIn via LinkedIn Live. An evening of mutual learning from the people who have served in our armed forces, the lessons learned, the sacrifices made, the camaraderie is done, and everything else in between. Couple of quick reminders. This is a conversation and a dialogue. So, audience questions and comments are most welcome in this LinkedIn Live Veteran Spotlight with me, your host Preeti Chaudhary. Our guest today is somebody who is an aspiring, or rather was an aspiring fighter jet pilot, somebody that went to NDA Khadakvasla and who is now a business doctor. A bit more on him just as soon as we have pulled him into the stream. But once again, a very warm welcome to one and all to this episode of Veteran Spotlight with me, your host Preeti Chaudhary, featuring Dr. Anuraag Guglaani. And let me just pull him into this stream for everybody. Good evening, Anuraag. How are you today?
Good evening, Preeti. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I am very well, and I'm actually looking forward to all the interactions and the conversations today. Our past conversations have been indication of how interesting this is going to be, spread over two countries and maybe 20 years in between, from the time to now. I'm really raring and ready to go. So, Anurag, just to put things in context, before we sort of start on this journey of talking to you, quickly to sort of let the audience know that you are currently based in Dubai at the moment. You are a PhD doctor, but then I will let you tell yourself a bit more about you. But just to say to the audience, this is a conversation and a dialogue that we have said before. Please let your questions and comments keep coming in into the comment section of this LinkedIn Live Veteran Spotlight with me, Preeti Chaudhary, featuring Dr. Anuraag Guglaani. Right then, Anurag, first things first, let's set a context. A bit more about your family background and where you're from and what's going on, please. That would really help me understand this whole story of you. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Preeti. Thanks for the introduction. And let me first wish everybody good evening in India and hear from the Gulf Marhaba, which means hello in Arabic. I think today I have quite a few people from Gulf also joining here. So pleasure and honor to be with all of you. I will set the context while Preeti has asked me about family background. Let me say that I'm an extremely, very, very firm believer that an upbringing and a background of anybody in the earlier years of life play a major role in shaping a person's personality and key personality traits or attributes. And many of that which may remain hidden for many, many years, but they will come out at the right time in the right circumstances. So, my grandparents were at that point of time what you used to call undivided India. And if we have people from that generation, they would understand undivided India, and where my grandparents, they used to be landlords living a life of luxury. That time there were no banks, so pots of gold were dug in the ground and kept. However, partition changed everything, and my grandparents were one of those who were driven away and were forced to witness the massive bloodshed, and they had to leave penniless and eventually land as refugees in the northern part of India. So why I'm saying that is, again to re-emphasize the fact that they had to rebuild their lives completely from scratch. And I think one can only imagine the hardship they must have faced in this entire process. Something which they were never prepared for or wouldn't have ever expected, right? And but they fought and they emerged as winners, and that's why I always say that men and women of that era and even our parents were made of steel, and we are no comparison to them. So, in fact, I want to say this. I met a lady in a flight once, and she was an author, and she mentioned to me that she's in some of her books. She has mentioned why North Indians may be slightly more aggressive in nature than the rest of this. And I asked her why, and she said, "My theory is that the north of India has gone through several rounds of invasions, whether they were the Mughals or whatever it was, and even." Post the partition, all the settlement was there, and people had to rebuild themselves again and again and fight for survival and struggle, and which probably could have brought that additional bit of aggression in nature. Now, moving from there to my role model, which is my father, right? He studied under streetlights because obviously the status which they were in, but during the emergency commission, he chose and joined the Indian Air Force, right? And I believe he did well for himself. He retired as a wing commander, but he didn't stop there while he was flying for the Air Force, and that's why I call him a role model, because even though his profession did not really require him to study anything beyond whatever was required for flying, which in itself there is a lot of studies for flying, but he went on to continue studying while doing his job at the Air Force. He did double masters. He studied law. He did hotel management, industrial management, and whatever whatever I don't even remember. And when he retired from being a pilot, he became a practicing lawyer. Imagine what a change! But it simply didn't seem like it mattered to him. And at the age of 70, he picked up cycling. Now at the age of 78, he's broken quite a few records. He's an inspiration for many. In fact, today he's been featured on a video because he does 165 kilometer at a stretch. Inspiration for many youngsters. And and I'll tell you why I'm setting up again this contest, because also my sister, she's no less, she's the one actually who pushed my father into cycling, introduced him to that world. She's been doing 600 kilometers at a stretch. She does motorcycling at the highest motorable road in the world. She's an avid trekker, swims across rivers, gold medalist architect. And you see why I'm saying is because it's important to emphasize the point that what we see and hear around us in the younger years leaves an implant in our subconscious mind, right? And that is which in my journey, as I explained to you, I will relate to how every bit of this has played some role or the other in that journey.
Sure.
And before I forget, the role of ladies, the ladies in the defense forces are generally perceived to be one rank senior than their husband, even though they are not serving. And that's very right. They deserve it, because when kids are away from their parents, their fathers, they are the backbone and the pillar of the family, right? And they are the ones who really brought the children up, and which you call now, in our terminology, you may call that as Fauji kids.
Right.
Is this sorry, is this a sound I'm hearing, or is it okay? Continue.
No, you're fine. Please carry on.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, because of my father's profession, being in the armed forces, obviously every 3 years we had to change place because of his postings. Now, while it sounds very easy, but let's try and understand that every 3 years for a young child, the food, the friends, the culture, the language, the atmosphere changes, right? And every 3 years, not 3 years, because 2 years you start packing for the next one, and then you go in and sell. So every 3 years is a new beginning, a new start, and that somewhere teaches the Fauji kids the only thing constant in life is change, right? And that gets implanted and deeply rooted in what you will see further in our discussion, how that played a major role in creating my adaptability skills, right? And a little bit more about myself. I in my class 9, I traveled and climbed the highest glacier, about 13,000 feet. Myself, I was the youngest guy in my school at that stage to do that. I played every possible sport, but mastered none of them, right? When I introspect myself now, what I've done in my career, it is not very different, because I today call myself proudly jack of many trades, master of some.
Okay, let me just take you back. Let me just take you back a second over there, because I hear of one sibling, at least, a sister. I'm sort of interested And I understand that it was an all-out Fauji family, because obviously your dad used to serve in the Air Force, and moving and all of that.
Yeah.
Any other siblings, and what was it like growing up? And did that have any impact into making you who you are, or at least molding you and sending you towards that NDA side of it? How did that play out? Over to you. Thank you.
So, no, I'm the only son. I'm the only son. My sister is slightly younger than me. Now, for sure, when I see my father in those flying overalls, when I see him wearing that dashing uniform, and those Ray-Ban aviator glasses, and when you get inspired by seeing Tom Cruise on Top Gun, there is no way that you can't dream of becoming a pilot yourself, right? So, my father had a record of accident-free flying and other laurels to his credit, but and I wanted to be better than him, and I wanted to. He was flying transport aircrafts. I wanted to fly fighter jets. I wanted to be faster in and fly those machines or birds, as you call them. And so that became my dream. And I studied hard because I know maths and science are two critical things required. I got distinction in class 10th. And studied hard for the UPSC written examination for NDA, which is, hundreds and thousands of people appear for that, but they only create a shortlist of about 1,000 people. Now, once I cleared the UPSC exam in my first attempt, I in fact gave up studies completely, because to me it looked like I'm almost there. Yeah, I'm almost there to achieve the dream I had. Even though you have to pass your 12th class and get in, and I was focusing more on training myself to clear what was coming next, because post the written examination, you have 5 days of services selection board interview process, which is highly grueling, right? So I tried to prepare myself for that, and not to forget that since I was also applying for Air Force, you have a test called Pilot Aptitude Battery Test, which again, I started flying in the civil just to see that I could perform better in that. And then most importantly, you have the Air Force for the medicals for the Air Force, which is again again something you need to clear through. So when I went on to the medical for the Air Force, I was declared 11 kgs overweight, because 67 kg was the acceptable weight. But then they cleared me and said, this 11 kgs will get rid of you in no time. And I didn't understand the essence of that at that time, but I'll tell you where it hit me right. So having cleared everything in the first attempt, it gave me a assurance that this is what I've been destined for, and I am at the right place, aiming for the right profession. Yep.
Okay, so that is really good, because you were sort of automatically propelled towards that. You worked really hard and you got through. So tell us now, obviously you're in NDA now, Khadakvasla. Tell us about those times, and tell us how it was. What were you doing? How was that shaping you up? Did that instill anything at all in you for the future? And anything at all that you remember, good, bad, ugly, everything from there, please. Over to you. Thank you.
I haven't forgotten any bit of it. And we are talking about from 1989 till now. So, but first thing first, the day I entered into academy, the first signboard I saw, it said NDA Maker of Men, right? And you feel very proud, but I think it does not take more than a day for all your fascination to die off, and reality to set in, because we were brought down to earth very, very quickly by the training instructors. First thing, when the barbers give us a haircut, and which is called the katora cut, with just 1 inch of hair on the top, in the shape of a bowl, nobody looked like Tom Cruise anymore. And in fact, my father came after 2 weeks to meet me, and he couldn't recognize me, as all that 11 kgs of fat which they were talking about had all melted down very, very quickly. But jokes apart, having said that, it was those 3 years at the academy which actually shaped me to become what I am today. And every bit of credit goes to my seniors, who made me have enough amount of ragging. My instructors and officers, who worked hard on installing what you call OLQ, officer-like qualities, and obviously my post buddies, who have shed blood and sweat together along with me, and we all stood for each other. So, but a little bit of issue was that I was termed as a slightly doubtful character in the academy, and doubtful is a term which is used for people who generally resist taking command. Okay, and I had a natural inclination to resist the orders of my seniors, and which led me to undergo several official as well as unofficial punishments or ragging sessions, all for the good now. but I was under several restrictions. But I don't think that ever kept me away from getting what I wanted, and I always found out a way to do that. And my course-mates can vouch can vouch for that. And I've done a lot of things at the academy. It was never a boring life for me, and I can pick one or two incidents for humor. Just for example, horse riding is is compulsory in the academy, right? And one day it was raining, and all of you all coming downhill on our horses, and one of my coachmates who was riding the horse right in front of me slipped and fell, right? And he apparently would have broken his shoulder or something. And since I was behind him, I was tasked by the instructor to take him to the hospital and get him admitted. And and what I did a couple of roll-ups myself in the mud and took him along and reported at the hospital, stating that both of us have fallen down and we both got admitted. So because there wasn't any easier way than this to get a rest from the training for a few days, till you're found out and everything is done. And we've had some very, very tough ragging sessions. There are certain punishments called seventh heaven. Seventh heaven means there is a wire mesh on the top. You have to hang on the seventh and not come down till blood is seen from your hands. Or there is something called flying Maharaja, where you are inverted with on your head, legs against a wall, and hands flying in the air, which is the Maharaja position. So, but why I'm saying that is because this physical ragging, howsoever it may sound, I think it was extremely important as a part of the training, because this is a profession we chose. And what were you, as a young officer, what were you supposed to do in the profession was to lead men, even to a state where they may be required to give up life for their country, right? And unlike the corporate world, you cannot give bonuses or increments or anything to these people. That is all governed by the law, by the government. But you got to lead by example, and that also from the front. So you got to have some solid leadership skills built in you, which people can take inspiration from. So I think every bit of that was important. However, what also happens is, there is people think that generally, traditionally, a Fauji's kids are the ones who will go into the defense forces. But let me tell you what happens is, out of the 360 or 300 or 360 cadets who enter into a course, not everybody passes out. Maybe 60-70% of them pass out. Now, what happens is that many of the people who are from the civil or a business background, they have an option to go back or choose to quit, if and even their parents support that. But imagine a kid from the defense forces, he doesn't have that option here, because he can't go back to the same community of having quit and come, and neither would parents support that. And thus, eventually, it happens like that. That majority of the people whose parents were your father was in the forces, are also now in the forces, right? So that's what is about the academy.
Yeah. Sure. So, pretty interesting in the sense, like, you get to play pranks, you get ragda, you get ragged, and along with that, there's so many good memories and so many learnings, because that is where all the bonding and everything else happens. So, I mean, time and time again, every Monday, pretty much the thing, when I talk to people, talk to the veterans from all the three streams of the forces, when specifically talking about the academy or the training, this is what comes out. It is the bond, the camaraderie, the bonhomie, and the relationships made for life. And that is something really important, because that is what carries one through and through. Which brings me, that there is a story now behind why and when you had to say goodbye to the academy. There was a lot of pain and heartbreak right there, but then I will let you say that. And I will come to my next question after that. Could you please mind sharing that story as to why you said quits to the academy, to your Fauji way of life? What happened? Tell us, please. Over to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. So I think this is where the turning point of my life comes in. So my first cousin in the academy, who was 1 year elder to me in age, but 6 months senior to me in the academy, actually passed away while undergoing training at the academy. And that was a major setback, specifically for my mother. I being the only son, she was completely taken aback, and she put a lot of pressure on me not to pursue further training. and specifically this career also because of my fascination for flying fighter jets, which is again a very highly risky profession. So, I mean, I had to find a way to, manage that situation. And what I told my mom was that let me spend my 3 years at the academy, and then I will not pursue this profession any longer. So that's how this thing happened. But I'm sure you can imagine that these were like shattered dreams to a certain extent. And when I came out, the career was absolutely on a standstill because it was very tough. I had absolutely no idea what to do next because all throughout my life I had seen only the armed forces life. I didn't know where to go, what field to pursue. Also because I hadn't gone through a formal college, where I would have interacted and known what's happening outside the world. We were doing our studies along with, but we were studying military subjects, military maths, military physics, military whatever it is, right? Even Russian as a language, that's what I was studying. So I think the first couple of days were very, very tough for me. And I think my father realized that staying at home could be a complete disaster for me. So he basically bought me a bike and asked me to start appearing for a job interview, to keep me occupied. While in parallel, he said, I study and whatever I deem appropriate is then look at what next needs to be done. So I think that probably was the best advice I could have got from him. I mean, it doesn't come naturally to you. You know, you are just out, and are you already prepared for a job? Can you go for an interview? But I have to tell you this: that my first interview I went in, I think it was an immediate crack because I had to crack it because you couldn't get somebody who has been polished and groomed at 3 years of the academy. Nobody can say no to a cadet like that. And that also I applied for a sales and marketing role where it was all about presentability. So what I did was I picked up my first assignment immediately, and I think from then till now I have never looked back because I decided to fly on the ground.
Tell me something. Yeah. So this is like almost transitioning into corporate straight from the academy, sort of doing a little bit of upgradation, appearing for interviews at the same time, and then slowly merging and transitioning into corporate. How did you prepare yourself? I know you were studying, but what else were you doing? Because here you also did something else, which was your transferable skills from your forces days, which is your presentability, your communication, all of that. You use that as a tool and you started applying for marketing and sales and those kind of roles wherein those skills could be transferred. So along with that, did you do any academic qualifications? How did that corporate transition happen? Continuing from what you were just saying before this, along with that, please tell us a little bit more on this as well. Back to you, Anuraag. Thank you.
So, we all throughout the academy, we have been bred on a slogan called "When the going gets tough, the tough get going." Right? It is inbuilt. It is implanted. So, one thing, and also one more thing, which we always understood was that people who join the fighting arms, or people who are joining or who are, for example, flying the fighter aircrafts or doing the most of the risky part, as you may say, to a little bit of the forces, generally tend to become the chiefs and get the higher ranks faster than others. And to me, somehow it appeared that a sales function or a management leads you faster into management in handling businesses and becoming C levels than any other vertical of an organization. Obviously, the second nearest could have been a finance function, but really someone who can really deliver profit, deliver growth is what it all brings on to. So that's how, I mean, maybe by chance I applied onto that, and then I had an instant click because I realized I have a very, very strong flair for learning, and not only learning, but almost applying it instantly. I never shied away from doing that. And that habit has today made me a very, very proud lifelong learner. I learn from anyone and everyone, whether it's a T-boy or it's a CEO. I learn from mistakes, I learn from challenges, I learn from successes, but learning is a daily habit, and it is, so it is there. And though I would say that my professional career has been quite a bit of roller coaster ride. Why? Because of my own doings. and which is that I have always, when things have started becoming comfortable anywhere, I have wanted to take a fresh challenge up, because when it gets comfortable, it does not give me the same excitement any longer. So whether it is a change of a country or a change of an industry or a change of a type of profession, it simply didn't matter to me. It should have sufficient challenge and excitement, and I knew I could do it. And again, coming from that old instilled belief that change is the only constant, right? So now, while doing all that, obviously I pursued academics parallelly, and I did my management MBA in finance and marketing from Symbiosis, a pretty good school. And then I also got to study at world's number one neck to neck with Harvard in executive education, which is IMD at Lausanne in Switzerland, right? And so my professional career, again, I have a little bit to attribute that to the leadership skills developed at the academy, which were slightly different, because here it was more about team spirit. I mean, today, at least wherever I have been, my team, I have a legacy for me that this is one guy who will stand for us whenever required, someone you can depend upon. And I think that helped me get my teams to deliver results which were never seen before. And that's how it has happened in all the places I have been heading at sea levels. I have been turning record growth on profitability, as well as sales, marketing. The entire organization has been taken on a high trajectory of growth and profitability, while I have always been responsible to the shareholders. Now, as a virtue of this, I have myself worked now in about 25 different industries, whether from retail to FMCG to automotives to consumer durables to electronics, you name it. And most importantly, I made this migration to the Gulf. Now, being in a place like Dubai or being in the Gulf gives you instantly international exposure. In UAE itself, you have 180 nationalities of people who live. So I got to travel across the world. I got to work, learn from different cultures, and all this helped. And also at certain stage, I realized that I have a flair for entrepreneurship, because anything and everything which I was doing was not like a corporate world. I was delivering profitability to shareholders, and which is why that became the subject of my doctorate and PhD, which was entrepreneurial skills. Because today, I'm a big advocate of entrepreneurship to be taught at high school, and not once someone has finished their education, because by that time they've already wasted 3-4 years of their not knowing what field they are getting into. So I say we should prepare the kids early, allow them to take risk early in life when they have very little to lose. And why I say entrepreneurship, I'm just going away from the point, but why I'm saying that is because uh, and we should not be preparing our kids only for jobs, because you can get him one job, but an entrepreneur creates jobs for many, right? And that gets the whole wheel churning. And that's what I strongly believe in. Now, just to say what I do now, so after several years of working for these large family groups and businesses, I I believed that the best role for me now would have been consulting, where I can share my knowledge and expertise and work with organizations to help them grow, expand, become profitable, and mitigate risks. So I became a business doctor to cure the pain of these organizations. And currently, I'm a partner with the 16th largest global auditing, accounting, and consulting firm, and lead the verticals of strategy, transformation, technology, and cybersecurity. That's about me.
Brilliant, I mean, amazing insights in the sense like a risk taker, somebody who's not afraid to jump from one thing to the other, constant upgradation. That is what is jumping out to me here. All the time learning and imbibing, not just educational accomplishments, but then going on to do a PhD, jumping regions from India, going to the Gulf so that the whole world is opened out. I think it's something worth admiring, in you, and I totally sort of get you because being a traveler myself, it totally resonates with me, so I can totally understand how that opens up a bit of travel, a bit of living in different countries, opens out the entire vista and the world, and then it's all there for you just to conquer and do
Yeah.
whatever you want with it, so amazing. A couple of things really, so much of experience and seeing both sides of the coin. What do you think? Any word of advice or caution to the veterans that are transitioning at this point in time, or who want to sort of say goodbye to the forces and look at their second stint in the corporate world? Any pieces of advice, anything at all? Back to you.
So, I keep on, obviously, I keep on getting a lot of calls from serving as well as retired armed forces personnel for advice on getting onto the civil corporate world because the grass always looks greener on the other side, and the first advice I give them is to do a self introspection on two things. One, to be very, very clear as to what they are leaving the forces for, right? What is it that they really want? Because this question cannot remain unanswered, because they have worked hard for the several years they have been. So this question is important to answer, because the corporate world is extremely, extremely demanding, and you can't be successful in a half retirement mode. It is not about having retired and then putting and taking up something just to say that, yeah, now I just want to try it out. No, it can't. It's very, very difficult to become successful in that. Now, if there is a possibility for anyone to leave early from the forces and join the corporate world, then they should do that and not really wait for the retirement perks to all flow in and get that comfort. That this risk is important and better, because you may end up making far larger sums than you would do through your retirement kitty if you can. And also, why I'm saying that is because please understand that every single day you are getting older, and the world out there is looking at millennials, generation X, Y, Z, you name it, whatever it is, and you can compliment them, but you can't fight against them. So the later the decision, the more difficult it becomes. Also, we got to understand that the number of years we've spent in the forces, there is a solid background, and whatever we choose there should be, we need to maintain our dignity and respect in what we should get as a function, as a role. But to do that, and also your earnings in the defense forces should not define what your new title should be, and it should rather be based on your capabilities. And for that, it is extremely important that you clearly draft out your key skills and capabilities, and then create a resume accordingly. Because many a times I've seen people changing the resume again and again based on the job description which is there of the job. Now you can land up in a job, but not necessarily perform in that. And if you don't, then it becomes highly demotivating and stressful. And that's not what you left the forces for in the first place. So why go that route? Okay. And if you are leaving post retirement, then you should ideally look at adopting a consulting or advisory assignment, and maybe then transition into functional role if at all required or possible. Because after several years of forces life, it is not going to be easy for you to change suddenly into a functional role. And you have massive knowledge and expertise at hand, which you can use to consult and take assignments accordingly, because a lot of employers would be happy to engage with you on either a freelance on a retainership basis, because they need this extensive expertise, right? And not everybody has that. Not everybody has gone through this. Now, even if you don't want to do this, you still taken up a job, then please be prepared mentally that you will face couple of job losses for a period of 2 years. You will. I have seen that happening, because you will need to unlearn. You will need to reskill. You will need to adapt, and it will take you. So, if somebody today starts a business of his own, we tell them the same thing. Take 2 years of teething period. Very, very difficult time for you. Now, similarly, for someone making the transition, take that into mind that yes, I will have to go through this, and mentally I should be prepared. And then when you get into it, you watch and learn before you apply your thoughts, and find if they are relevant to the need. But very, very important is you got to start planning this at least 2 years ahead. And you got to research the trends, build the network, because it is the network which is going to be your key to success. And this network is not only going to be an external network, you also need to build internal network, because people will need using your internal network to reach where what you can do versus others who can't get access to. And also in terms of skills, I've seen a lot of people continue to gather degrees and a lot of academic knowledge. Every kind of degree is showing on their this, but some of the basic skills are missing. Now, no business, you've got to have certain basic skills of presenting, selling, marketing, digital marketing techniques, trends of the future, because businesses don't flourish otherwise. So take time to use these skills which can help you market yourself at a later stage. Academic knowledge is just one part of it. Do remember, extremely important, remember that you can be a role model for the younger generation. And they will respect you. They would want you to join hands with them and help them create something. You could be part of a startup as a co-founder. You could be part of a board advisor where you could play the hand-holding role if it is where your skills lie, not just any. There is one point I want to take, because you just mentioned that, Preeti, in my entire career, there is only one skill that I can attribute the success to, and which I think very strongly differentiates one versus the other. And I call it RTA, the risk-taking ability. So this ability to take risk differentiates people. And in the armed forces, I think each one of them has enough risk-taking ability they've gone through, and they should take advantage of this. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there is so much that the forces life actually teaches and prepares people for. And, I have seen both sides of the coin, really. Have loads of friends in the corporate sector as well. It just so happens that, the corporate sector is in awe of the veterans. They do not know how to deal with them. And the veterans, by virtue of being away from social media and other stuff, are not uh, sort of, they don't know about the corporate jargon, the way things work. So there is this little bit of gap. And I think a lot of communication and sort of open dialogue between the two can help both the sides to actually bridge and find a way to start looking at things and then start doing things. Pretty amazing insight, and I totally agree. Lots and lots of transferable skills, lots of stuff that can be brought forward from the forces into the corporate world, but not the other way around, maybe. So that is something nice. Anurag, anything stand out to you from your days? I know it's been 20 years, more than 20 years now, but those 3 years, they happen to be the main part or main chapter, the turning point, as you say, of your life. Anything stand out from there, and any regrets at all in all of this, from when you were 17-year-old to now, to this day, when you're sitting in this hot seat at Veteran Spotlight? Back to you. Thank you.
See, what happened with me, because I left for the Gulf pretty early. And at that time, we didn't have active social media platforms, and making international calls were very expensive. So actually, yeah, I completely lost connect with my course buddies for several years. And but when we reconnected, it appeared that there was never ever a gap. It was so quick. My course mates tell me stories about myself which I may have forgotten. Now, this strong bonding, which was created during the years of training, when we shed sweat and blood together without any expectation from anyone, is something to cherish for life. And which is why we call ourselves the 82nd Band of Brothers. 82nd is our course, and we call ourselves today, we have our own group which says 82 Band of Brothers. And I'm extremely proud of everybody who is there and who has supported me. You asked me about regret, and yes, I do have a major regret. And that regret is that, unlike my other postmates and buddies, I can never wear the uniform of the armed forces. I can never hang the wings, the medals, the honors, and walk proudly with that. I can't win those gallantry awards, can't be active in action, right? And even you'll be surprised that even today, every day, when I wear my suit for my office, I wear the NDA insignia on the top. Every single day, I've never missed that even once, because that's the only thing I can wear and carry. And even today, if possible, I would do anything to join the armed forces, even if it is at this age. And I salute my course mates, my course buddies, everybody else in the defense forces who has served or who left. They are marvelous people, fabulous people. All each one of us can take inspiration from them, and that's what I regret. That's what I miss.
Okay, fair enough. The audience, now is the time. Any questions, any comments? We will be taking them up because I am going to ask Anuraag to tell me a couple of stories of pranks and of shaitanis that he remembers from the Khadakvasla days, and you have that kind of a time to start putting in those couple of questions, 3, 4 questions. We have about 10 minutes to ask him, ask away. So please ask away because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So we'll come back to those live questions in just a bit. But Anurag, any story stand out, something that you keep telling your children or your parents or your sister about from those days that you remember very distinctly to date today? Maybe a couple of them because I like to hear stories, and that would give time to the people to also think of what they would like to know from you further. Back to you. Thank you.
So there are several, and this is these stories can never stop. Uh, but once I was telling these stories to one of my coursemate itself, and he says that were we both in the same academy, in the same environment, because I never got to do all this myself. So I mean, at one stage I was given the terminology of being the squadron doctor. And today, when I'm actually a doctorate, my course-mates make fun of myself and say that you became doctor, you became a doctor right in your academy days. And how that terminology came, because like I mentioned to you, people would do anything and everything possible to get rest and skip a few days of training. And we had cases where people would come after the vacation back with a plaster in their leg or a plaster on their hand and say that we should be excused from physical training or this and that. But everybody knew these tricks, and then they would, if they had a plaster in one leg, they would be made to run on one leg. If they had a plaster on one arm, they would be made to do push-ups with just one arm, and all that kind of stories. So I at one stage, I can read some questions here coming, and that's why I started laughing because they also asked for stories. But yes, I was a squadron doctor because anybody in the squadron who wanted to take rest, there was a medical category to be given, and which I used to allocate on behalf of the medical doctors. Because I was, that's how I became a squadron doctor. Respite for my course-mates. And there are several other things. I think you're already getting some questions. I can see here, Preeti. Cannot hear you, Preeti. I think
It's one of your postmates, and he wants me to ask you about your French leave. Does that mean anything to you at all?
Yes, it means a lot because you see, like I mentioned to you, I because of my doubtful character, I have been on punishments all throughout. Now, what happens is that when you are on punishments, you have something called a liberty card, which gets confiscated. Now, liberty card is something which allows you to go out on a Sunday into the streets of Pune and mingle around and all that. Now, when you're supposed to be on punishment, you are not supposed to go on a liberty. But what he's talking about is a French leave, which means that I don't recollect that I would have missed any of these without having a liberty card in hand. We've gone through the jungles and found various ways and means of getting out of the academy without a liberty card and being out there on a Sunday, and that's what is called a French leave.
Okay, all right. So it looks like there are quite a few of your postmates, batchmates here watching the live today. Anything special you want to say to them, your band of 82 brothers?
Yeah, whosoever is there, I would like I mentioned, love them all, respect them all, and really they all stand for each other. We recently had in fact, a very unfortunate incident of one of our postmates having passed away, and how quickly all the 300, 250, 260 odd have come together to support that cause with one guy leading it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And when you know that you have 250 people behind you or 300 people behind you, if something happens, there can't be a better, assurance for you or your family. Not you can't cherish this anywhere. And the beautiful thing here is that we don't have to have anything to take from each other. So this is not a business relationship. This is not a professional relationship. This is a bonding of something which we did together many years back. And imagine a scenario like mine where I haven't actually served with them for that long. They were with me in training, and we still maintain those that bond. Fabulous.
Absolutely, that's what it is all about. That's what the forces sort of teach you. You know, no one should be left behind. You need to carry everyone along with you. किसी को
Yep.
पीछे नहीं छोड़ना है. So that is where all of that bonding, responsibility, trust, and all of that happens.
Yeah.
We are about 5 minutes away from the close of our evening. Is there something that you would like to pass on to the veterans in terms of careers, transitions, emotional up and downs from your last 25 years of cumulative experience of being on both sides of the coin? You know, any parting sort of advice or what to do, what not to do, kind of a thing. We've spoken by and large about what to do, basically maybe a few things that they shouldn't be doing when they're looking at career transition. Do you think anything coming to your mind?
No, I think like I very importantly mentioned, you have the number of years you have spent, you have developed certain skills and competencies. Work, try to utilize them. Don't try to recreate the wheel again, because that's going to be extremely difficult at this age. And you've given enough to the country. You've done a lot. Take some time out for yourself and try and take an assignment where now you do things which make you happy in whatever you do, where you can utilize your skills. Because today the world is like that. Whatever you have capability of, you can either make money out of it or get self satisfaction. You have e-commerce platforms you can do for the community, social media, you can reach anywhere and everywhere. Digital marketing makes it much easier. Just like today, on this LinkedIn Live, we are talking to several people, a beautiful forum. So all this wasn't there earlier. So let's try and maximize the usage of this. Let's create a strong network, like I again said, internal and external both, and maximize the benefits from that. Enough to do.
How?
Enough to do.
Right. And one thing more, I sometimes fancy there's enough alumni around as well, people from the forces who are into different companies and segments. And why not leverage those relationships and those, networks, and possibly maybe, I'm not saying for a job, but maybe just for learning also while we are planning our transition. What are your views on leveraging existing networks in corporates of veterans? What do you think of that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that can be done, but I think once somebody has got settled down outside and he's able to contribute through this, like for example, you are doing a wonderful thing here every Monday. This is all about learning. This is all about sharing thoughts with the veterans, with the serving armed officers, even a larger network of professionals who are already working. I think everybody should be happy to. There are so many success stories. Even within my postmates, I know people are all over the world. People in the US, people in Canada, people in Gulf, people in whatever country you may name, and all of them are doing brilliant for themselves, right? Some have done it early in life, some are still doing it, and this whole ecosystem is available. And I'm only talking about my postmate, but imagine this whole ecosystem of the armed forces is so big and so wonderful that if someone centrally or certain bodies centrally try and play it in the right manner and create an ecosystem which nourishes the whole professional upbringing of a veteran, there can't be anything better than that.
Sure. So it is again all about fall back upon किसी को छोड़ के नहीं जाना है. Take everyone and go together. It's all about again reviving those. Uh, Even by association, I would say you necessarily do not have to be batchmates. Once you are in the forces, that sort of an affinity creeps in, and you can easily approach anyone and seek whatever knowledge share or anything that you ever want from those people. So I think that's something to maybe look at for, as a fallback, as a plan B, in terms of continuously using and leveraging those relationships and those networks, and then trying and doing something for yourself. So with that, we are at the end of our evening and our veteran spotlight on LinkedIn Live with you, Dr. Anuraag Guglaani, with host me, Preeti Chaudhary. Any parting comments, last comments before we say our byes and we go away from here?
Well, I think
Oh,
I
hang
hope.
on. There is a hang on. There is a question. Let me bring this up right here. So this is Gautam Nath here. I'm ex-NDA A Squadron 89 course. Veterans usually have wide experience, and hence it becomes necessary to mold your CV towards the JD in the areas of the veterans core areas. Else it doesn't pass the HR shortlist stage. Would you agree or not agree?
So, Gautam, first of all, you are my squadron type. I am Bravo Ninja. So, anyways, I have to answer that question right for you. But let me tell you, this is exactly what I'm against, molding the CV. You see, yes, there is, like I said, you are molding the CV for a particular job. But if you got to mold your CV as per your own capabilities and skills, you may have done hundreds of things, and we all do hundreds of things in our life. Even today, I do multiple things, but does not mean that I am strong in every single bit of it and I can perform well in every bit of it. So I really got to introspect myself and find out which are my those key skills and capabilities on which tomorrow, given an assignment, I can stand to perform. Because at this stage of career, nobody is going to take you in as a trainee. You're going to be leading people, and people would want to see you coming as an accomplished person, and whom they can learn from, right? And you can only teach what you are very, very good at, rather than just something where you would have just touched bits and pieces. So this is very, very important if you want to get the right assignment in which you can deliver and shine for yourself.
And that brings me to again another question from Gautam again. Could you please describe an occasion post PMR wherein you took a risk and it paid off, as well as another occasion when you took a risk and it failed spectacularly or did not pay off?
Yeah. So let me tell you, see, my risk taking, because I was heading and I was reporting to the shareholders or the board. I had to put my foot down and say, tell me what you want out of me. I will deliver that, but then I want an uninterrupted kind of a management style. So if you want an X return on investment, you want that much amount of profitability, that much out of top line, bottom line. I will deliver it. I'll take. If I don't, my neck is at stake, and I'm willing to take that risk. But allow me to do that. And that risk taking has literally worked for me. Obviously, then you are putting self-inflicted pressure on yourself, and when you are doing that, you make every bit possible to deliver those results. Right now, at the same point of time, what also has happened is that sometimes such kind of a risk in an atmosphere where you have a lot of other corporate heads along with, who may not really take it in the right spirit. They may think that yes, this guy wants to stand out for himself and XYZ, and they would like to pull you down. And I've also gone through those stages where such a risk did not help. If the people surrounding you did not get to believe in you, or were superficially believing in what you were saying or agreeing with you, but not really, or saw you, or who see you as a challenge or a threat, right? So both situations are there, and these will come. Every risk will come with success, and risk will also come with failure. We have to be mentally prepared. We can't say that every risk we will take will deliver what we want. Doesn't work. I haven't seen it happening.
Right. So that brings us then finally to my question prior to Gautam's two questions. Saying any parting comments, anything at all before we say our byes and head off for tonight. Back to you, Anurag.
Right. So I think the only thing which I would like to say is that I hope anyone who heard this conversation today found it inspirational enough. And I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. If you ever need to talk to me, reach out to me for anything. And I will part by saying Jai Hind.
Okay, thank you. Audience, you've heard that. It is Jai Hind from Anuraag and me, Preeti, on Veteran Spotlight, featuring Dr. Anuraag Guglaani here on LinkedIn via LinkedIn Live. Until next time, take good care and be safe, everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And Jai Hind.